could be homosacre. And homosacre in Islamic, in jurisprudence Islamic, that say haram, haram, something that came from the Hebrews or Jewish law, that is the case of Spinoza that have put in that was put in the haram, excluded. It is about that, that is the base in some sort of the economy and the relation and the rapport of the sower or governor with the life. Maybe I am so far from the topic, but I think to understand better or more clearly what happened in the Muslim world, we need to understand the place of governor, sovereign, and sovereignty, and his relationship with the economy and with the life, and the production of homosacre. Okay, in this time, what happened in the Kurdistan, a region administrated, by the assembly, or the exodus, the place that formed or created by this exodus, that is in some sort, that is a no man's land, is another name for the haram, haram region. Haram region is somewhere we could kill without to be pursued for the homicide. We became killable. We became killable. And who have the right to declare a region or a life killable? That is the governor, that is the imam, that is the caliph. That say the one who is in this place have the right to declare a life haram or licit. That say he have the right to make haram something that was licit, or make licit something that was haram. For me, that is one of the possible formulation for what happened in this day. And okay, to resist to this sort of power, you need another thing. You need to speak or to act in the name of another thing, not in the name of God, not in the name of nation, not in the name of, you need another thing, another reference. That's for what this moment for me is we could say, fondateur moment. The Exodus, the Jewish, for example, the Jewish history start from the Exodus from the Egypt, that say going out from the camp, from the state, and try or attempt to create another thing. That is for me in somehow what happened in this time for the Kurdish people. That is I am agreed. It's about the culture. It is about the land. It is about the interests of people. But the form, or by them, the forms by them, we looking for to realize it, or interest, or resist against the state and against the power, is so interesting. In this time, for example, the anti-amps works with Khomeini. They are the declaration of anti-amp and Stalinists that support the fatwa. Fatwa, do you know what is fatwa? The religious declaration, the fatwa of Khomeini against the Kurdish people and the Kurdish region. There are the declaration of support letter from the Gauche anti-Stalinists, or somehow Trotskyists. That is about that. That Khomeini have the famous formulation about the Kurdish region in this time, in the Kurdistan. They say, Khomeini clearly, they say the problem in Kurdistan is the communism, you know. And but that was not right, you know. There were the communists, okay, the organization communists, but the form of this organization was not the party, or I don't know, party revolution are the people, or the Khmer Reds, you know. That is not about that. It's about the assembly. I want to have my assembly. I could be a part of state by assembly. I need in somehow my autonomy. You know, that is what we could call autonomy in the Kurdish region in this time, you know. But another thing interesting that happened in this time, you know, the last day of the Exodus, there are the people of Sanandaj, the cultural and political capital of Kurds in Iran, you know, the red for now, since this time till now, red really the capital and city. That was a march, you know, by walk for 1 week from Sanandaj to Mariwan. And when the walk or the march of Sanandaj arrived nearby the Mariwan camps, we have some slogan in Kurdish. But between the Kurdish slogan, we have some slogan in Persian that say you could imagine Jewish and gentles, Jewish, non-Jewish, Jewish and let's say Kurds, you know, upon us this image, and the gentles, nations, you know, the stranger, foreigner, I don't know, maybe. The slogan in Persian said, we will make all the Iran Kurdistan. We will transform all the Iran into Kurdistan. All the Iran must become Kurdistan. Okay, in this dialectic, when all the Iran became Kurdistan, there is no more about the Iran. Iran will be vanished, you know, disparation. We have not more the Iran if all the Iran became Kurdistan. But in another word, you know, in another word, from another pole of this dialectic, if all the Iran became Kurdistan, there is no more Kurdistan. You know, that is a dialectic when that could resolve the question of identity. You know, when the people and the gentle became the same, to create another people. And that show us the people is a political construction. That is not about, you know, that is something more important from the notion of the class for me. That is something more than that. That is something, you know, for example, even now there are the people in Kurdish region, the writer or inner of all the world, you know, they want or they try to explain the Kurdish question just by class struggle. Yes, there are the class struggle. I am okay. I have not the problem with this notion. And somehow I am Marxian, okay, not Marxist, Marxian, but it is about another thing. How, by which politic we could solve in the same time the question of class and the question of identity, and avoid to the class struggle became itself an identity. That is for me about that, you know, to be ready to become people in each moment. That is what happened again now since 1 week ago in Kurdistan and Iran. You know, that is so strange. The slogan came from the Kurdish historical Kurdish struggle, the woman, the life, the liberty, translated itself in general in the domain, in all of the country in Iran, for the Arab people, for the Persian people, for the Kurdish people, translated itself, al-mar'a, al-hurriya, al-hayat, or Janjian Azadi in Kurdish, or for example, Zan Zendegi Azadi in the streets of Tehran, or another street, another city of Iran. That is the same dialect. Let's say by participating in a politic, we could, for second time or for the first time in the history of Iran, create another entity, create another thing, create really a people. But what we have for now, officially, that is not a people, that is not a nation, that is imposed by the power, by the force of, for example, by the force of administration, by the force of police. There are something more interesting, the young girl who have killed by the police, Iranian police, is a official name. Official name is Mahsa. We read in the Figaro, in the New York Times, in the BBC, or anywhere we have this time as Mahsa. But this young girl have another name. That is so strange. Have another name. Let's say the Kurdish people, the Kurdish individual that have a Kurdish name, they have in the same time an official name, because the Kurdish name are not the official name. Okay, that is like the Jewish, for example, porcelain have another name, Fasah, porcelain in the Jewish community, he have that is the secret relationship of the Jewish individual to the Abraham and to the promise that is more than flesh. There are two sort of relationship to the Abraham, by flesh, by body, by the blood, and by the promise. Okay. We have an official name for this young girl, that is Mahsa. But she had another name, Gina, that came from life, Jin in Kurdish, that's a life, Okay. Okay. In the stone of her tomb, that's wrote, someone wrote the farthest moment, the farthest hour. Dear Gina, you are alive, you are not died, you are not dead. But in this stone, we have the secret name, but she has killed by the official name. Okay, that say us something, about the life of this community, of these people named Kurd, they say us another thing, that say about two names, two education, two music, two form of life, two subjectivity, official and with the permission, the state and the police, and something that we have as culture and name and music and dance in our house. Okay, what is the means of translation or our transformation of this hidden tradition? That is so strange. Okay, we have not the school Greek, we have not the ancient literature that's Greek, we have not the religion as Kurd, we don't create, we have not the prophet, Okay, we are not the people, but we are a people by politic. Okay, what is the means of intergenerational means for transforming or translating the culture and the language? That is by the music. Really, that is by the music. That's say in the Kurdish society, in the Kurdish politics, the most dominant discourse and the media is now and all the time was not the book, my romance, my article, blah, blah. No, that's not the speech. They exist. But if you want to do something really, you must to create, you must to now sing, you must to create a music, a melody. And you must to write, for example, a poem, you know? And the poet and the singers have the role of the prophets and the martyrs in this community for these people. You know, Öcalan, for example, Öcalan, Abdullah Öcalan, the great reader of Kurdish, the ancient Marxist, Leninist, after Maoist, after confederalism, democratic, blah, blah. But when he want to be a really relationship, to touch the people, he spoke about Dervish Abdo, you know, for example, he gave a hero and a sinner and the lover, a sinner and the lover who sinned for the people, you know. I am like Dervish Abdo. And he wrote a poem for the first time in his life. You know, this leader, you know, he wrote a poem, he wrote a poem for who? For Darwish Abdi. That is, okay. It is about that. For example, I have two friend musicians. There are in Berlin and in Cologne, Excel. They create yesterday and today two music for Gina, for this young girl. Okay. That is what we could intervene. That is our intervention. The greatest media is the music and what and the literature. You know, in the literature, that is a poem. Poesy. It is about the culture, and I'm so sorry. I go from this point to this point to this point. You know, but. I don't know another form. I don't know another form of speech or speaking, you know, and it is better. You know, we speak as two friends. I'm so sorry. You have the parole, as the friend said. You could speak. Sorry.
No, this was absolutely wonderful. Because one of the things which you really showed, you went through, you know, the history of the 1979 revolt, and you situated that in a longer history, in a bigger history of you know, this moment of revolt, of resistance, and a longer history of the Kurdish resistance itself. And then you also, you know, really showed exactly what we're trying to do is understand the continuities of resistance. And one of the things that we find when you're looking at, you know, African and African descendant or indigenous movements, there are continuities there. And some of the continuities that you spoke about is even this idea of, you know, two names, right? You have the sacred name, and then you have the accepted official name that the state gives. But the sacred name is the name that carries on, you know, the genealogy of the people, the history of the people. And you're remembering, even in the context of what just happened with the young woman, you're still carrying on, you know, and placing that in this longer Kurdish resistance, this Kurdish movement. And so with that being said, I mean, you know, there was so much that you laid out, particularly this idea of autonomy, this idea of land being important in the context of creating one's identity, but at the same time, being able to control one's particular place in the world. At the same time, it's in relation to this all-powerful being, this state entity that has two power, right? there's an official administrative power, but then there's a sacred power that's given to it through the interpretation of Islam.
Exactly.
Yeah. It was important because, again, one of the continuities that was running through my mind was this notion of maroonage in African history, where you had Africans who were enslaved, and they escaped, you know, the chains of chattel slavery, and created these autonomous regions that were a threat to the structure of a plantation state, of the plantation economy. So we see these continuities consistently, you know, through a people who are culturally sound and stable, and also attempting to defend their humanity by using the different categories of humanity, culture, you know, interpretations, relationships to land, how we redescribe or redistribute power amongst our own people becomes very important as well. So anything you can respond to anything that I just said, or add to anything I just said as well.
No. I had another idea about the land and the relationship between the land, but after that I will have some question. Okay, James, you know, I remember in our village, or another village in our city, in our region, you know, there are some source of water, some forest, some lands that are in some sort sacred, you know, but the term used in the Kurdish language that's not sacred, you know. My mother said or said, for now, that this land or this tree or this forest or this source of water, you know, is sacred. Okay, and you don't have to appropriate it. It belongs to no one, but it belongs to the, she said, this, for example, this water have a khawan. Okay, khawan, that say in Kurdish, khawan, that's the property, this owner, have an owner. I have this pen, I am the khawan of this pen, okay? But we call the God by the same name, Khuda, you know? I am the God of this, okay? That is so strange. This source of water, I could drink, okay? But I have not to appropriate it to myself. This forest is here. I have not the right to touch it. Sometimes this source of water is in the center of my land, my private land, but it is not mine. This forest is in the center of my land, but it's not mine. Okay, that was belonged to the someone that we don't know, the Khawan, that say God from the name of the God came from the same source, but that is not the God, you know. Khawan is not Khuda. You know, there are two things different. That is not God, that is Khawan, someone or some power that we don't know. And we have not the right to touch it. We could drink, you could not to block it, for example, you know, or interdict this source to the another one, you know. That is not for confiscation. That is so strange, but that is not haram, you know. We could go in this forest, we could dance in this forest, but we have not the right to cut the tree in this forest, or we have not to cultivate in this part of land, for example. Okay, but what do the governor, the sower, you know, for the state, all this land or source property in the territory that in the tradition had or have had the Khawan that was untouchable, is legitimate to touch for the governor, for the sower. That is the base of economic politic of sovereignty in this type of state. for the people, there are something out of propriety, out of that, and we respect that. But for the power, for the state, all belong to the state. Okay, that is an example of how the economy in this power, in this sort of power work, and in the popular tradition works. There are this difference. By this difference, that is for me so strange. For example, maybe by this sort of interdiction, we could resolve in some sort, some question about the ecology in our time. That's saying, in the name of the power, in the name of the state, we have the right, we are lawful to touch what that we want, what we desire, without interdiction, without sacred, without nothing. We have the right now to touch all the things in the name of the state, in the name of the God, in the name. That is about that. Okay. But as you mentioned, James, what we need, it is a question of continuity, and to find the point in common between these ingenious people, Black people, Chiapas, Kurdish people in some sort, or all the oppressed people, how we could find, we could relate, we could find the contact between this struggle, between these people, between this tradition. That is what we need. And that is what could be another sort, really for me. I'm honest in this point. I'm frank, that is another sort of, solidarity international, or another sort of internationalism. Why now? For example, what happened in the Mariwan in this time, that say unity of the peasant, for me, came from the film created, directed by Elia Kazan in the time, Viva Zapata. When I compare the forms, the discourse, the barb, the sort of organization in the Mariwan in this time, and I compare it with what happened in the Viva Zapata, Elia Kazan, there are so many things in common, and why not? And I found a testimony said one time, one of the friends of the representation of the delegation of Kurdish people in Mariwan, that I with Fuad, we was in Tehran in the crane of cinema that was Viva Zapata, and we found some money to buy 2 tickets, to go to see this film. And that is the time, that is in the same years that the organization of Komala, the revolutionary organization of repressive of Kurdistan, has created. That is a coincidence. That is something in common, Or I have another testimony that say we was influenced by Elia Kazan, by the hippies movement, in United States, by M.S. Césaire, by Frantz Fanon, We have this type of element in common. That's for what we must work together. I'm so sorry, I speak beaucoup.
No, no, that was important. And also it was important to really highlight, what we're trying to do is really identify the points of continuity. And this goes into a lot of the work that I do in critical consciousness formation, is that it's one thing to be conscious, it's another thing to be critically conscious. And in order to become critically conscious, we have to find continuities globally and resistance movement. And the Kurdish resistance movement has so many similarities, particularly as you really laid out today, with the resistance that Africa and people of African descent have had, but also other indigenous groups. And so, in order to really build what you were mentioning, this notion of a more substantive solidarity, it's one thing to just say, okay, I know this particular history, I know how it connects, but it's also, the idea is what we're going to do about it.
Exactly.
Because folk are still people are still being impacted by these power relations. We just saw this in we see this happening right now with the young woman who was who was killed not so long ago. We see this happening with police violence, particularly here in the United States, but also across other places. So, this conversation and this particular initial conversation, because again, there's also the notion of translation and then transliteration about how do we speak to each other in a way that is connective, substantive. So, again, as we kind of close out, again, I want to honor your time. And did you have any more responses or any more that you would like to share based upon the continuities that you kind of see that we can do moving forward? Are there some points of continuity that, people can see right now that they can do other than just kind of looking at the news or looking at, just kind of what we call it, looking from afar? How can we really understand, connecting things that we could connect on at this particular moment right now?
You mentioned the continuity in the Kurdish movement or in the contact with another movement. In the Kurdish movement, you want to say? For me, it is about, James, why I could see or proclaim. That is something like a metaphor, in a long roman or in a long poem, we have the motif or the metaphor that came back, that realizes or manifests itself in each time in another form, in another name, in another image. That is for me of it, the continuity of a movement could be something like that. That is not the same thing that came back all the time, but it is about the inner dialectic of a movement that say, by resisting to the oppressor, the resisting subject change itself and the oppressor in the same time. That's say, in a dialectical process, as the subject of resistance, I develop myself, my subjectivity, my form. I create another thing. I develop my language, my vocabulary, my imagination, my motive. That is something about that. For me, it is about that. That's it. But somehow, that is something that came back with the same word, with the same form, but not in the same place or by the same person. For example, in the ceremony of this young girl in the first morning, I in the net I found two video to chant, to sing, that belong to the time of the Exodus 40 years ago. But we sing now by another subject, by another person in another place for another opportunity, for another question, in another ceremony, And what was strange for me, the, the partly most of the people that was there that I speak about it, some hundred people, you know, some thousand people in this ceremony. Maybe the half of the people know already this scene revolutionary, this hymn, the revolutionary hymn in Kurdish that is interdict, that is not lawful, you know, where they learned the same revolutionary Kurdish, you know, that allow me to imagine in somehow a you know, continuity. I will give you another example. For example, about the continuity, about the slogan, the woman, life, liberty, you know, or freedom. Okay, this slogan was invented in Paris. In the ceremony of the terror, three militant Kurds from the PKK movement killed in Paris by the police torch, you know, by an agent of police torch in 9 years ago, you know. There was a slogan, Jean Jian Azadi, okay. That's it. But in circles, in Iran, you know, in the same time, in this morning, we see that this slogan came back to become generally the slogan of all the people in Iran. That show us or lets us to imagine in some sort of continuity and a inner dialectic in this movement. From this point of view, this slogan no belong more to the PKK. Till this day, till this morning, okay, that was the slogan of PKK, but it is not more the slogan of PKK. You know, what a movement chose and took and take from the reality, from the language, from the music, from all the things.
Your point is very important, and is what you're getting at is that the continuities evolve based upon, you know, the moment within which ignites a response or a reaction to some particular event. And I think that that's very important. So when you're talking about this dialectic and what can be done, is that we have to be clear about what is happening within the movement. At the same time, how does that connect, you know, historically, but also how do we see a different future? Am I getting that? You know, this dialectic part in the movement is going to determine, you know, what happens next.
In the future, what
Yeah, the opportunities for change to come. So the dialectic part, the part of the dialectic is what is happening internally. How is past informing the present, and then the possibilities for the future? Because you're talking about this event, this recent violent act of you know, killing the young lady, but you're also talking about that this also has some historical significance, but the continuities may not look exactly the same as they were in the past.
Okay, let me come back to the subject of sample. Yesterday we spoke about that. You know, I will call my people whom that was not my people. I will call beloved one who was not beloved. You know, okay. That is a question between it is about, you know, in this continuity, in this dialectic of movement, that shown us in the time of the Exodus, that it is possible to create another entity, another body, political body between the people and the gentles, you know, between these two parts. That is what came back. since this week, you know, see, 1 week ago. That is what came back. That is just, it is about a chance, you know, to seize, to seize, you know, that is the chance to seize. That is, let me go back to Benjamin, you know, the outrage in the night of the world, in the night of the history. That is some moment that brusquely that show us there are something there. We could work on it. We could seize this part, this something that was not clear, that was invisible, you know. They show us there is something to seize, you know, this movement, and that this moment could be the small door from which the message came, you know. It is about that. It is about the chance, you know. There are not the guarantee, but in with each movement there are the new subject that create itself. And when we became the subject of a movement in the emancipatory movement, in an emancipatory politic, it is impossible to go to the yesterday, you know. Something changed basically in the subject when we participate in something revolutionary, when someone understand or you know, taste, you know, the pleasure or the jouissance of the liberty, maybe just for 1 hour, he or she became another one. What will happen, I have not idea, but I'm sure all these people that have participated in this moment are already changed. They are the subject of something new, especially me, you know. I know there was something ignored by myself. That was the question of gender inequality as the essential question. You know, since yesterday or 1 week, I was someone that spoke about the class struggle. I am now for this idea, but there are something more. We must to understand what happened, what's about gender inequality, you know, because, for example, as upon the research of one of my friends, my Kurdish friend, you know, the minority has treated in the history as woman. Okay, as woman, minority and woman is the same thing. Okay, in this sort of power. Let's say by criticize this discourse, we could save or liber or something the minority too. And also, you know, that is some idea. I think there is a new subject, that is the time of creation, a new subject, politics. And we will see, and I am some sort sure something will happen, basically, this time. But it's because the first time that we received something like the question of gender inequality in general. We spoke about that, but we had not the movement in the name of gender inequality. That is so new.
Honestly, thank you. That is actually a perfect way to put a pin in the conversation. And we're not concluding.
We must write about
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
together as group, as 2%. I don't know, me, you and Arab. We could, and maybe we must to write about this thing, you know, because I know, for example, Grace to the Toni Morrison. I could imagine myself, really, to be frank, honestly, as a Tess in the beloved Roman, the one that must to kill her children because they have not the food to give, and because she preferred that her children not be a slave. I understand very well, and in my skin, in my body, I was sometimes in autonomy.
Thank you for listening to Terrains of Struggle, Continuities and Freedom Dreams, a mini radio documentary that was designed to explore possibilities, radical possibilities, and how they become material, how they be brought to life through resistance, rooted in the assertion of a people's collective humanity, and how this process is transmitted in time and across space. More importantly, we were interested in what can they tell us about ourselves, each other, and our relationship with land as a fundamental component of freedom, what are the continuities and conceptualization of autonomy, and the role of culture in struggle. We hope something was shared that will inspire you to think critically and act accordingly, to build a global commons of struggle, where we move beyond symbolic solidarity to material exchange. Until we meet again, we leave you with the words of Marcus Garvey.
Look for me in a world when I was calm. Listen, you have great. I shall come back with countless millions of black men and women who have died in America, those who have died in the West Indies, and those who have died in Africa to aid you in the fight for liberty, freedom, and life.
In struggle, peace and light.
Streets every night. Yeah, we looking for a way out the problem. Every time I see police, heavy cries. These are scary times. Screaming out beef, you took a life. Another one's gone, a lost soul. That's why we're marching in the streets every night. These are scary times. These are scary times.
scared for your life and you're running every night. You just gotta hold on, brother. Lose yourself. Don't let them make you lose yourself. You know.